Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another recap review of the HBO original show, It. Welcome to Derry, brought to you by the Culture Collective, fueled by, powered by Big Gold Belt. Today I have two of my awesome co-hosts. First up is, she's everywhere humanly possible in Big Gold Belt. You already know, Miss Reasonable Doubt. What is going on, Amaya?
What's up? What's up? Hey guys, welcome back.
And my other co-host, the soon-to-be editor-in-chief of Nerd Spin, Mike. What is going on, sir?
No, that's actually not true. Um, but no, anyway, hey, I'm glad to be here. Glad to be here. Welcome back.
And today we are here to talk about episode 2 of It. Welcome to Derry. And this episode here kind of defines exactly what we're going to get from this series moving forward. So let's jump immediately into it. And in the first scene, we get to see Lily as she is having nightmares of exactly what happened at the end of episode 1, all the explosiveness of that. So I'll start first with you, Amaya. What did you think about this episode opening up as Lily reliving that moment and then waking up, kind of almost tricking the audience in a way to thinking that maybe she was in a nightmare this entire time until we find out later on in the episode she's just reliving this nightmare.
No, I thought that that's what was happening. I was like,
Oh,
well, maybe it's not real. I mean, I kind of was just hoping, honestly. I knew it was real. So, I was just like, damn, that was a lot to happen in episode 1. But I think it's like you said, it just sets the tone for what's to come on the show, but it definitely set the tone for episode 2. And it just felt very, it's interesting because obviously we see further in the episode that nightmares go around for everybody, right? But the
yeah.
way that she is trying um to ignore hers, right, to act as if it's not actually happening is very interesting for me to see.
Yes. And Mike, what did you think about the way this episode opens up with that reliving of the horrors of the end of episode 1?
It was giving full on POV horror game feel. If you played any online games, I don't know if I got the names of them, but like basically just POV horror film where you're seeing the perspective of a person walking through a very intense situation, and now we're in the eyes of these um of the one of the children. As you know, we saw one point of view at the ending of last week's episode, and now we're seeing this one, and again making it front and center. You thought you can forget about it, like, no, I gotta bring you right back to where we started. They say, no, this is not a dream, this is real.
Yeah, I think that's what make this beginning so effective is that they decided, hey, just in case we didn't traumatize you enough at the end of episode 1, let's
Mm-hmm.
start the trauma immediately at the beginning of episode 2. And speaking of trauma in episode 2, enter black trauma into the chat, as in the following scene, we get to see Hank at home with, and I named her Roni. I said it was Ronnie. Someone
Ronnie.
up here corrected me and said it's probably more Roni than Ronnie. And we find out it is Ronnie, and it is short for Veronica, as we
Veronica.
have
Mm-hmm.
Hank and his mom at the house as they're discussing what's happening as the police are sitting outside his home, harassing him, immediately thinking he's responsible for these kids missing. And then we get the conversation between him and his mom as it pertains to Ronnie. And one, we now find out she's not going to school. He's completely isolated her from everything in the community. And now grandma's stepping in like, nah, this baby needs to go back. All this stuff we got to put beside us, and we can't allow them to dictate how we run our own lives. So I'm starting with you first, Mike. Just what do you think about the message that this sends so early in the episode of this very strong willed black grandmother standing up like, no, even with the harassment, even with everything going on, this little girl still needs to go to school. She needs to do whatever she can to get out of Derry.
um Whether this is fiction, or not, whatever, we heard this conversation before in our families. We have the same grandmother, or aunt, uncle, mother. um that's speaking in terms of the generational trauma that's being passed down through. But rightfully so, because again, in the times of the 60s, height of it and everything, it's the fear mongering of it, because it's not about what is fact, is about what the police and everything is kind of intimidating you to. And now, especially in the 60s and stuff, they're just finding every excuse under the sun just to, lock you up, regardless, of any alibi or evidence you may have. But yeah, I felt that was a very raw conversation, but also seeing again what Stephen King and this entire It franchise, goes back to. The star of it is the children, and I think it was good to show this perspective of watching a child, realistically listening to an adult conversation, and then being real about it when you find out that she's listening to the whole thing. Like, no, we're not going to sugarcoat this, especially in the 60s. So, yeah, it's kind of setting that precedence of just of like, yeah, these children are, being thrown in adult situations, and they're not blinded, in terms of what's going on in the conversations that are happening around them, even in their own home.
Exactly. Now, Maya, what did you just think about this opening, especially from just the perspective of this little girl who, from the beginning, was concerned? What will happen if something happens in this movie theater that they're going to go right back to harassing her father?
I mean, well, I said it last episode, right? I was like, this is what is going to happen in terms of, it's inevitable, right? We know that the young boy went missing, and they was last seen at the movie theater. Now we have the murders, which can't be confirmed, but there's blood everywhere, so there's an assumption being made, right? And I think that it's interesting that even though Ronnie and Lily are together when this happens, that somehow her dad is now involved, which is it just seems very interesting and weird. In terms of grandma, I mean, I have questions. How long was Ronnie not in school for, right? Because we're talking like a week, then okay, yeah, then I could see her being home for another week or so. I can understand his fear in terms of like whatever they're doing and saying about him, they're also doing and saying about her. And so having to really prepare your child for that, knowing that this world, and particularly in Derry, is so it's so black and white in terms of the fight or the disconnect and the controversy, the headbutting, and the racism, so I wasn't surprised per se, but it's also interesting excuse me, to see that grandma doesn't think that, like he said, like, you're my witness, right? You're the one who is confirming my story. You think that they actually are taking that in consideration? Like, so, there's so many different factors going into what's happening here. But I do think that at the end of the day, grandma makes a point. She does have to go back because she does have to face what reality is out there, not in here. So.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest message there is not only face what's happening in reality, it's also how else are you going to get out of here? Like, especially back then where education was the way you get out of here. And other than that, she'll be trapped here in Derry. But speaking of people being in Derry, next up we get Leroy on the front porch as we get to see his family finally arrive in Derry. And what makes this, granted, it's not much to talk about in this scene besides what happens in the next scene between him and his son, but his son is the most important element here. William is a huge character in it. While he's dead, when we get to the original movies and the book, here we get to see Williams kind of for the first time ever of showing this character on screen here. And we see as the family arrives, his wife Charlotte, the first thing she does is ask, are we safe here? If it's going to be somewhere where we're fine. We get a white woman who actually speaks, rushes by really fast, but she actually speaks here. So maybe that is something to look forward to see how that dynamic is going to play out. And the other interesting dynamic is the dynamic between William and Leroy. I mean, did I say Leroy? Yeah, it is Leroy. I don't know why that just sounds such an old name. William and Leroy here, as he's just looking through a telescope, and we get to see that weird father-son interaction of possibly because Leroy hasn't been around. So this, Amaya, what did you just think about this introduction to the Majors family here? And just how his wife, even from the beginning of this, And we'll talk about it later on what she does, but she's very assertive here up front about her family.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, obviously I have a family who's in the military, right? And I understand what that does to the cohesiveness and the bond of a family. You miss out on certain things. You're not caught up like you were. What was going on in 1998 is no longer happening in 1999. You got to keep up. And so she's showing up as the matriarch for the family, right? She's saying like, hey, this is what he's into now. Let me, like this is here. I need you to bond, right? There's the last thing we need is that he's moving into a new place, having to go to new school and meet new people, and you know what I mean. So it's a very interesting dynamic, and I love that she doesn't necessarily, she's not assertive in an undermining way. She just speaks her mind, but there's very much a respect for him that she has. And while, she doesn't mind being here in Derry, she also just reiterates like, hey, we're here for you, and so that whole opening and just him, William, I love his character in terms of the playfulness, but the scientific genius, so to speak, that they've given him. It's really beautiful to just see passion of the sciences in a Black character, in a Black boy, especially during this period of time. So I'm interested to see what does happen over the next couple of episodes and for this season.
Exactly. And Mike, I'm going to ask you a different type of question. What do you think about the introduction of this character that we know about him in the It saga, but we've never really seen this character before. So what do you think about your first impressions of the introduction of William?
So one, I thought it was good because it's showing that passing of innately in your DNA of his curiosity of science and trying to find the answer to everything, or situations, or the things that can't necessarily be explained. He can find a way out of just because he has a curious mindset, and that's passed down again to Mike Hanlon when he's literally trying to find ways when he's an adult to defeat Pennywise and everything. Whether he was successful or not, in terms of the way he did it in the book and the movies, whatever. But at least it's just showing that curiosity again of him. Like this is not a dumb, you want to call it, should I say, illiterate family by any means. This is a very intellectual family. And I'm glad that they're showing that predominantly again in the 60s of that, because it's not like they didn't exist. It's just now they're actually representing them in media. And also, which I didn't want to jump into a theory, whatever, but in my head, I was like, I was trying to look through like what was the other girl's name, because I'm wondering the Black girl's name.
Ronnie.
Okay.
No, that's not. Yep. I literally checked, and for people that don't know, because I knew exactly what he was thinking, because I thought the same thing.
Yes.
You were wondering, was Ronnie would end up being Mike's mother?
Yes.
Because I mean, it's two Black kids in Derry, and one is a male and one is female. So you immediately put them together. But no, because Mike's mother is actually named Jessica.
Jessica, right? And I was like, it's not Jessica. Yeah, it's not Jessica. But I was just saying,
exactly.
It just because both there was a very in the books too, like they handle their family was so strong about how Derry and the atmosphere of racism, and that both of these characters have very traumatic experiences, not only with his father being in the military, but also with her and her own father with the movie theater situation in this whole episode. So I thought, like, trauma bonding, it's a thing. But I didn't want to, I just say, oh, only two Black people in the episode. Oh yeah, I didn't want to be like that. I was doing research on the side, so like, wait a minute.
Yes, that is not. And next up, we get to see a quick check-in on Marge. This is a character that we were introduced last episode. She plays out a little more in this episode. The silliness of the time, the need to fit in type of character here. It's not really much to talk about when it pertains to Marge at all, except for just that introduction of her. Then following up, we get the General as he meets with Leroy to tell him that Masters has confessed to being the person that attacked him. Now I'm going to stay here and we're going to talk about Leroy's storyline up until the end. That the end part we're gonna save for the end. But we will talk about the remainder of Leroy's storyline in this episode as it pertains to him attempting to find out who actually attacked him. So I'm starting with you first, Mike. What did you think about the general as we see Masters walking out and him saying, "Oh, he already admitted to everything. Everything's fine." And then we get the major ask a question about the weapon that was used against him. Did you think that was a significant question at the time, or did you just think he was fishing for more information and he didn't have concrete evidence that Masters couldn't have been the one who attacked him?
Again, I say this is a very smart family, right? But even just using black people, there was one moment in this episode, which I don't want to jump into, another iconic Stephen King character, that two black men had a quick moment of acknowledging each other. That was so powerful. Just like it was a wink, and it was just like that it was just like that was just very powerful. But with that scene, is just showing that even then it's like, I'm finding information that, hey, maybe I was curious about something, and then you confirm my suspicion. Because again, it's not, if I just want to be complacent, then I'm just going to accept, all right, yep, that was the person. And it is realistic in some cases with that acts of violence against amongst black people. There is a level of complacency because you don't want to go, go all the hoops and hurdles just to get to the truth, and then you might not like the actual answer, right? You're just like, hey, this is taken care of. Move along, exactly. And it's like, no, but this isn't right. And I liked how this is showing in terms of someone's credibility, morality, of showing the fact of like, no, it's this, I have every right to throw this dude under the bus, and who does not like me, who does not like my black ass, whatever. But yet I know he did not do this. And I know I must stand on my principles and my, character, to realize that, hey, something seems suspicious. I've been in this world far too long to know that some things are not actually what it seems, right? And then with a little detail like that with the weapon that they were using, and just ask like, no, something wasn't adding up. Again, his suspicions led him to a correct answer because again, the general confirmed it for him.
Yeah. And Maya, I'm going to ask you, what did you think about the general at this moment? Did you think we were getting a situation where, oh man, the general is going to be the other the racist person who set all of this up? Because it just came across a little nefarious once Leroy asked him that question.
I mean, well, I knew that the general knew that Leroy is smart. Like off break, I knew that there was a certain level of respect, a certain level of knowledge. I wanted you here, right? He said, "You're the man for the job." So we know that he respects him. He knows that this man has what it takes. And I instantly knew that Leroy knew that was a fake. Like I knew that this guy was not, he was the easiest person to pin it on, but that was not who actually was in the room. And him asking about the gun and, having to actually confront the general, I think that's just very bold of him, and it speaks to his character and who he actually is. And so for me, the general is going to be, to a certain degree, I feel like he's going to be what we quote unquote consider an ally, but only as long as it benefits him. So I do think that it's possible that he will become just another, racist person in the military. But as of right now, it suits him to be on Leroy's good side.
Exactly. Next up with Leroy, we get as he visits Masters in the prison. And this is where everything is confirmed when he talks about the gun that he had in the Korean War and how hard it was for even people who mastered the weapon to actually cock that weapon back and be able to use it. Almost pinpointing that you would have had to been in that war to be able to use that weapon that way. And it then turns out that Masters cannot use the weapon that way, as Leroy did what everyone normally would do in this situation, which is egg him on to get a reaction out of him. And then we get the conversation between him and the general, where the general openly admits, no, this was all a test, because I needed to see if that brain injury you suffered in Korea would be something with lasting effects and could hurt the mission. What did you think about that setup when we get that big reveal from the general that one, I set this all up, but not because it's being racist, because this is a test. I need to make sure that you can hold the secret. And I think you brought it up last episode too, Amaya, when you said
Mhm.
it felt like a test because how would enemy troops end up on the base?
Yeah. I mean, again, like just being able to, I wasn't sure he was going to be honest, honestly.
Mm,
I thought that he would, like push, just blame it on somebody else or whatever have you. But again, like I said, he knows that Leroy is smart, and it just two and two didn't add up. He was going to keep on fishing until he got to the bottom of it. And so the general's best bet was to come clean, because it would have led to him possibly having to report him if he found out any other way. And so I thought it was interesting. And again, like called it, I was just like, this doesn't make any sense. It feels like a setup to see whether or not
yeah.
he's going to give up these codes and, whatever have you, or just if he's not going to be able to sustain being in whatever they have, cooking in the background, in terms of that this might be something he has to endure. So I just thought that, yeah, the general didn't have a choice. His best bet was to be honest and to come clean.
Exactly. I think that's what's the key element here. That his best bet was to be blunt, fully honest, exactly at what happened on. Now, Mike, I'm going to jump ahead because I don't want you to answer any questions about the general, because we'll save that for later. But the next scene before all of this happened is we get Charlotte as she's walking the streets of Derry here, and we see here that it doesn't really feel like a racial undertone that she's experiencing here. It just feels like the entire town is a little weird in the way they're operating. But once she gets to the butcher shop to get something to cook for dinner that night, and she sees 3 boys attack a young boy, and no one else moves to do anything, and she runs to stop this from happening, breaks the fight up, and everyone looks at her like she's the problem. Mike, what do you just think about that? Because we understand that, especially as it pertains to Hank and Ronnie, there's a racial element here in the town of Derry. But here with Charlotte, this clearly wasn't a racial undertone. No one had any issues with her. Everyone spoke freely to her. They only look like she created a problem when she stopped the kids from fighting.
Yeah, like I felt this was a perfect example of not race but culture, which is even what's kind of impacting right now in our society. Again, like some things are not, not about race, is really the culture, because again, it's like, oh, it's not about what you look like, it's how you comply to what is around, and agree or be nonchalant about the stuff that's actually happening around. Again, the complacency, right? And um and I felt with this, it was kind of just showing just the lingering spirit of, what you would call it, Pennywise, or at least just terms of his influence, of just terms of what you call like despair around the town, in terms of no questions asked, no mysteries and stuff that are explained throughout over this entire city, or this entire town. And it's like, and then we just kind of just accept for what is, right? And just keep it, go along, get along, and everything. And while the black woman, who has been, literally conditioned to notice danger and everything, and notice when things are off around her own surroundings, because again, it's not about just terms of necessities, survival for her, just by instinct. And then therefore we're seeing someone that is getting armed, not black kid, whatever, no, white kids being another white kid. So and saying like, no, this is wrong, because it's like that, this been happening to my people, and I'm seeing this happen to the new town that I'm in, and yet everyone's okay with this. It's like, so there's it's just revealing, again, it's not about a race thing, it's culture. And much as even people can smile, and they'll smile at you and think, hey, hey, welcome, welcome to the store, whatever, blah blah. And then it's like, wait, okay, so I'm not a problem, but this here is like, oh yeah, we don't want to address that. Something's wrong with me that I broke this up. Makes no sense.
Very weird looks that she got off there. And then the following scene we get as she arrives home to have dinner as a family, and Charlotte can't let it go. She's going in about it, telling Leroy, I should find out them boys' parents, let them know what's going on here. And We get William speak up first, like, Mom, please don't do that. As we already saw a quick interaction of him when he arrives to class, how the kids already treat him as something different in the class, and he doesn't want his mother to single him out. But what's very interesting here is as the parents are going back and forth, we get William saying, hey, you all don't need to fight about this. And it brings up that there is some underlying tension already between Charlotte and Leroy. So, Maya, what did you think about the way this dinner scene was portrayed and that underlying tension as we literally find out during this scene where Leroy tells her this doesn't need to turn into Shreveport again, which is in Louisiana where 50 Cent is building everything humanly possible right now. But where he tells her this doesn't need to turn into that again, and her throw it right back on him like, you act like I was the problem with that. What do you think about this tension and interaction at the dinner table?
Well, I'm actually hoping we get a little bit more backstory on that because I would be interested to see what happened and what does that phrase actually mean. But I will say that I think that she is, as we said before, she's assertive, she speaks up, so she's outspoken, and she doesn't have a problem being that sore thumb that sticks out, of the patch. And for me, what I noticed really was how William responded, right? He is aware that they're lying, quote unquote, right? Like, we're not arguing, we're talking. We've all been in situations like that before where parents claim not to be having a fight or argument in front of us. But really and truly, it impacts us in such a way that we have to remove, ourselves from the table. And while I get her need to maybe discuss it briefly, I think the lingering on it to turn it into something big and the epitome of doing too much, right? Doing the most, as we like to call it some days, creates that tension at home because we have this thing where it's like you can bring inside, you can bring outside inside, but you can't do it too long before inside becomes outside, right? So like if you're talking about it too much, now it becomes a thing and that thing lingers and now it's inside and there's, so I'm interested to see what was that tension that happened beforehand. And what it will build out and how they're going to handle William being able to say like, hey, I don't want to sit around for this, like especially with Derry being such a weird town. What is to say that something else will not happen and cause more tension or friction between the three of them, which we know that is what Pennywise is known for. So I thought it was well done though. That scene was really, really well done in terms of like parents arguing, saying that they're not arguing, trying to tone it down, the child being very aware of like what this is. That goes back to saying like children are way smarter than we give them credit for.
Exactly. And the next scene that we get of importance is we get Ronnie talking about people arguing right back at the house here with Hank and the mother arguing over police harassment as we see Ronnie decides to throw the covers over her head, as most kids do, because, covers protect you from monsters and everything else in the world. But here we get the first triggered nightmare for Ronnie as she throws this cover over her head. And the cover becomes, I'm going to say this in a nice way, the birth canal.
The womb. It becomes the feels, the sac. It becomes a sac.
Yes. As Ronnie ends up being reborn into the world out of her dead mother who passed away giving birth to her, as the dead mother is blaming her for it. It says, look what you've done to me. You did this to me. You killed me like you killed those kids. And as Ronnie looks back,
your father.
And you'll kill your father. And Ronnie looks back at a certain particular part of her mother's body. We're not going to go into detail what that part is because everyone should know, because she came out of something.
Well, listen, it didn't look like that when we look back at it. I'll tell you that much.
But we see then the glowing yellow eyes of Pennywise at that moment as the mom then attempts to pull her back into the birth canal through the umbilical cord. Ronnie ends up tearing it, trying to escape, and the monster goes directly at her, trying to, it looks like, eat her, up until the screams awaking her parents. So, start here first with you, Isha. What did you think about this overall horror scene as it developed from the birth canal to the trauma of her having to see her mom, and her mom, who died during childbirth, blames her for it and then tells her you're going to end up killing your father also.
I mean, what a great. The scene is just super gruesome, but it's so well done that you can't hate it. You know what I mean? Because you're for me though, I'm paying attention just like we do when you're reviewing shows or watching shows, you get to this habit where you start paying attention to little things. Seeing her look at her mom right before she goes under the sheet, and I'm like, okay, something is gonna happen that aligns with this. And did not expect it to be her being back in the womb, getting ready to be born again. Like that's just, so, but again, I think he does such a good job of playing on that fear, playing on the unknown, the regrets, playing on the not feeling worthy. Like literally every single thing that you have an affirmation for, Pennywise feeds on, because he wants to get you in that most vulnerable state. But I thought the scene, it's gonna be gruesome and gross for a lot of people. I don't think people are prepared for the level of horror that he's really bringing right now in this show. But I'm when I watch horror movies or horror TV shows, I'm always thinking like, come on now, bro, like that's not your mama, right? Don't say mommy, just I don't know. I'm not gonna call you the devil. I'm just gonna call you something, but it ain't finna be ma. So I don't know, but I do like that. It's again, we're starting to see those tidbits of the nightmares coming through to taunt each of the kids now.
Exactly. And Mike, from a technical standpoint, what did you see here from this horror setup here? As Amai said, this is a very gruesome scene here, but it's so important that one, you see the yellow eyes because that lets you know exactly who's controlling everything, but also just the amount of fear we see on Ronnie's face as all this is happening.
Yeah, I'm seeing Emmys in terms of technical design, visual effects and everything. I've never seen anything like that ever, that I can think of. I really like in terms of that. And I thought in terms of visual effects again, because there also had to be ways of practical elements too as well, that and the way they were able to pull it off was very interesting in terms of turning the sheets into the lining of the like the placenta sac and everything. And I thought slowly you notice it because you started with a heartbeat and then everything transformed from that. But again, but it's almost like outliving a child nightmare. And honestly, it's I think again and it was on top of the black trauma with this. In fact, that I had conversations of having children. This and last week episode, my wife cannot watch this show at all. She can't. Especially you religious don't because it's just even when just with the eyes too. It was just like I thought that was perfect. In terms of I was reading that Pennywise again is not. It's probably not going to be shown into your face not until later on in the season. But again, the consistent buildup, even in dialogue, where you're seeing people's like now. I don't know Bill Skarsgård. I don't know saying his voice. People voice different characters, but you can kind of sense the voice of Pennywise through other people by how they're talking, and it just kind of getting that sense like, is that Bill or is that? Or are they doing like some voice modulating where they're having both of their voices kind of sync together, and it sounds like the mom's voice transitioning into Pennywise and stuff. Because again, it's like a possession. It's like someone is taking that voice, and I thought that was good too in terms of the editing of how they did that, and allowing moments to have increased intensity, but then also just quiet moments and just allowing the creepiness factor just to sit. Like, I am looking you straight forward and open womb, everything, and the umbilical cord still attached, and all the makeup and the
sack
substance
and
and everything,
everything over her. Yeah,
everything, and she just petrified again. It's just like that, and it's just like, look at this, you just made a mess, like it's just, and you're still shocked, and you haven't had time to process what's actually happening. So yeah,
exactly.
that was good in terms of the editing, sound mixing there, but also again from the practical elements of it. And I thought that was well directed in terms of transitioning when she was sleeping and waking up to when the dad came
Yeah,
in the room.
I think that's the most important element here. Is I know too many people are focused on the point that you don't see Pennywise a lot. You got to realize if you saw the movies, you really didn't see him a lot. A lot of what he did was built fear through other things. Speaking of it, one of them is shown in this episode, which is the big, tall statue of Paul Bunyan that the town is erecting. As we see that in It Chapter 2, when
Two,
he makes
yes.
that come alive to attack someone. So I mean, you shouldn't focus on not actually seeing the clown form of Pennywise, but you've seen Pennywise in both episodes so far this season. Because, as you said before, and I think it's a beautiful job that they're doing, it's the voice modulation of these characters and of these nightmares, where you hear the difference in the voice. So you know it's like not her mom because you heard a little bit. Or at times when it's a shadowy thing in the dark, you get to see the outline of Pennywise's face through things. Like they're doing it in a very creative way to not have to reveal him too early or before it's necessary for the season or for the show to build the heightened suspense that's necessary for this to even be worth it. If I saw Pennywise in the first episode, I would have felt like, it's no big reveal. And here they're building it up, but still like freaking you out completely with everything. But next up, we get 3 airmen. There's not much shit to talk about except for it's 3 airmen in a bar. It sounds like a joke.
It does.
These black airmen are having drinks, having a good time. And then on the other end, we see the sheriff walk into the bar, and 2 white gentlemen come up to him, basically tell him, you need to arrest Hank. He's black. He did it. The kids are gone. It's in his establishment. Or if you don't, you won't be reelected. We will find someone else to do it if you don't do it. Here is just laying the groundwork for the town pressuring the sheriff to do something that the sheriff openly admits, I don't think he did it at all. We gotta wait for the evidence. And we see later on how all of that goes out the window here. But next up, we get the colormen as they notice the white barman coming up to them, and as Mike said perfectly, one black man looked at another black man, a head nod, we got to go. We got to get out of here. As they go to a different establishment, which hopefully they will show us where the black soldiers actually go to, because wherever they went to, it had moonshine. That's all we know so far. But as they get back to base, this is the important part here. As the 3 airmen get back to base, one of them being Dick Halloran, and once they get back to base, we get this white sergeant general at the gate who attempts to make a big deal of it. Dick tells him, if it's going to be a problem, give them my name. Everything will be fine. He didn't believe him up until he gave Dick's name, and they said, oh, that's him? Let them through. Don't give them a problem. And here we get the other 2 airmen ask Dick, what is it that they have you doing? So, Mike, I'm going to ask you, what do you just think about, again, we know how big of a character this is throughout kind of Stephen King's universe here, but especially with it. Is what do you think about just the impact here of he's an extremely powerful person here that can almost get whatever he wants to, and no one's going to object to it?
Yeah, sounds familiar. I'll just say with that context again in the 60s and to that, today, again, it was very realistic, way a conversation that will happen sometimes in these bars or in private settings. If someone just walk up to you like, hey, I guess you ain't getting reelected next year, like those conversations again. It's just like morality's out the window. It's no, it's you know, and even though the path of standing on morality is more difficult, again, people just like, well, I still need to take care of myself, so I must make the hard decisions, whatever. But even then, it's also just showing just in terms of black people, even then, just like before you even approach the table, we need to go, but also again reminding yourself that when you have certain privileges that you can also wear out your welcome, where it's like, hey, don't get too comfortable, and just to think like, oh yeah, because I just got this special card, we just saw a film at TIFF that was about the Nigerian apartheid, and one person say, well, I got the letter from the mayor, and it's like, what letter are you talking about? Like that's it, again, in a certain time, again, we can have a card or a scapegoat, whatever, or have a seat on the table, but again, it's always that again, that incentive of always trying to again, protect your own, if you
or say you're not special just because you got it.
Yes.
In the end, you're not us. No matter what privilege we give you, you're not us. As we get to see in the following scene with Dick, as he's just recovering at this point, as they're still digging for whatever it is, the secret thing that they're looking for here. And then again, we get to see another white possible major or colonel tell Dick the same thing. Like, you think you're special because they allowed you to do all of this stuff? You're wasting our time. And when they find out you're wasting our time, they'll deal with you again. It's just someone attempting to put him back in his place because they don't think he's as special as the general knows that he is. Next up, we get Lily in school as Marge attempts to get her to sit with the cool girls at the table, which I'm not really in tune or liking anything with Marge and these little white girls who will call themselves the what? I forget what they call themselves.
Peppermint twins or something. I don't know.
The patty cakes.
Yeah.
The patty cakes, not the peppermint.
Peppermint twins is crazy.
Exactly. 1985. Peppermint twins.
Yes.
But here we get to see as Lily sits by herself, Ronnie approaches her. And this is where they go back and forth, where Ronnie tells her, what did you tell the police? And this is where Lily lets Ronnie know she did not tell the police what she saw. All she told the police was Hank wasn't there. And this sets Ronnie off because Ronnie knows exactly where this is going to lead to, with her not being upfront and honest with what she saw. But then in the other token, we kind of understand why Lily's not saying what she saw. Because again, we got to remember, she just came out of an insane asylum herself because of what happened to her in the past, which we'll get to later on in this episode. But Maya, just what did you think about, again, another conversation at a table? This time is at a lunch table between Lily and Ronnie here, as we get to hear the despair on Ronnie's voice about Lily not telling them exactly what she told Ronnie.
I mean, I knew that was coming. I knew it was coming. Like you said, we get the backstory of why she, she's like, she doesn't want to go. She doesn't want to go back, and it's just so interesting because here you have two very afraid little girls, right? One is afraid for two different reasons. Well, they're both actually afraid for two different reasons. Yeah. They share one of those reasons, which is they saw their friends get murdered. Ronnie's is her second one, is that her dad is going to get taken away, and for Lily is that she's going to end up going back to Juniper Hill, and so they have serious trauma between the two of them. They are very, very afraid. And it hurts my heart because, understanding Lily's pain and why she wants to speak up, but she won't. And then we see, like, inevitably, like, what Ronnie thought was going to happens. And she even goes as far as to go to Lily's house, which I thought was, like, super, super bold. But this conversation at the lunchroom table had to happen. And quite frankly, I was a little surprised because I wasn't sure what they were building up to. But I loved, again, back to the cinematography of this, the patty cakes over here actually playing patty cake, right? Drowning out in that one space, and then Ronnie and Lily over here having that conversation. And so really well done. And like I said, the conversation was inevitable. Ronnie is afraid for her dad, and Lily is like, I'm afraid too, but I also don't want to go back to Juniper Hill.
I think I like the way you poignantly said you can understand both of them. Like in the end, we got to remember these are children. Like Lily is not telling the truth because she wants something to happen to Hank. She's not, because she's terrified of what's going to happen to her. And we see the town playing off of that fear. Even the conversation she has later on with the sheriff, where he completely plays off of her fear about going back there to get her to tell him what he needed to hear instead of what actually happened here. That's why I said this scene is so great, because you should get these two young actors who are laying it all on the line here, especially since it all started with Ronnie coming to Lily telling her, like, I had a nightmare. And that's the also big fear that's looming over both of them. Lily's already had one. This is Ronnie having it for the first time. And now they're bonding, as Mike said earlier, with someone else. They're trauma bonding at this point. Like both of them are terrified, both of them are scared. And while a secondary fear of both of them are completely different, it's all intertwined together of exactly why everything is terrified here. But Mike, I'm going to ask you, as we not close out Lily, but get close to closing out Lily, what did you just think about Ronnie after Hank gets arrested, after Lily's harassed in a police station by the captain, and then she goes to Lily's house and approaches not only her mother, but her, but we also don't get to see her mom play any race card. All the mom says is, if you don't leave here, I'm going to call your grandmother.
Again, I think there's, well, one, all the Black women's episodes show no fear, at least the ones that were real. That's had no fear. So again, just a testament, protect Black women. Yes. And the fact that they this town is easy. Again, this is why I know when people complain about representation and when they're dealing with topics about race, and then they go into the whole woke conversation, I think the beauty of it is actually showing the fact that yes, it does exist, but also you're showing also realistic interpretation. Like, yes, there are people that go the hard R, and there's people that have like, listen, I don't have nothing against you, but get the hell off my porch. It's
crazy.
Yeah, I mean, but I mean, serious. And the fact of even earlier in the episode when you had the one older white lady walking past the house and just saying hi, and then they kept walking, because one, she's like, oh, this is new. Two, I'm like, yep, you said hi to me, and I'm gonna say hi to you back. I'm gonna still keep walking, and just adjusting that. It's slowly the turning of progression just in the society, and the fact that they are in the North, so it's like they're not in the South. So which is what the
that plays a big part too.
Yes. Yeah. So there is showing that level of like, no, we're in the 60s, but we're on top. We're not
It's as older Black people would say, is a certain je ne sais quoi to Southern racism. Like,
yes.
That's a completely different form of racism.
Yes.
As an old Dave Chappelle joke when he said, like, in the South they're so racist that they use the word like it's normal. Like a white man coming to the post like, morning, nigger. And he'd be like, morning, sir. Like they don't even understand just how offensive they can be at times. But here would have been in the North, as I love that you pointed out, it's a different type of prejudice and racism. It doesn't always have to be in your face for you to notice it. Even though, granted, I would say here with Ronnie, it really felt different. It didn't feel like racism. It felt like the mom clearly knows the grandmother. The point she says, I'm going to call your grandmother, means there's some form of communication there where she can even say something of that nature. Unlike the boys in the school where it's kind of clear that they don't like Black people.
Yes.
Or the patty cakes that don't kind of like Black people. Like, it seems like the more racial elements at times of Derry are from the children more than the adults, which is a little different. And I think it could play a little part into the horror element of this show, because Pennywise is known to attach himself to kids more than he does attach himself to adults. And just the way all of that is going to end up being played out, it's going to be extremely interesting. But Maya, I'm going to ask you, if you kind of hinted towards it, what did you think about the conversation between the sheriff and Lily? As we get the sheriff again, someone who openly admits, I don't think Hank did this. But now that his job is on the line, he manipulates and just coerces this little kid into just saying, all I need you to say is, it's a possibility he wasn't there.
Yeah.
Instead of saying that he wasn't there.
I mean, I was getting ready to channel in my Dave Chappelle, but I will not. I just will say that he doesn't want to be seen as a Negro lover, right? Like, he doesn't want the mayor and the councilman, I believe, or a governor, right? Yeah. But somebody political came to him and was like, hey, either you make it happen or we're going to elect you. And that's enough to get him scared. Like Mike said, it's his lifeline. It's his career. It's how he makes his money. It's how he's going to sustain. And if he can't do that, then, yeah. But I really think it's a low. It's such a low. I instantly hated him. For a moment I had some pity on him, because I'm like, how can he fight this when people obviously are after him if he doesn't prove, or doesn't at least arrest Hank. And then seeing him manipulate Lily, who's already traumatized once with her dad, now traumatized a second time, or actually 3 times, right? Because traumatized once with her dad, traumatized twice with old boy who went missing, and now traumatized a 3rd time with the kids. And so it's like, you're despicable to me. So I'm hoping at some point in the series, in this episode or season, that he somehow crashes out and burns and dies. But who knows? I don't know. I don't know.
And here, as we're closing out, the last 2 big things that happens in this episode. First up is Lily as she goes to the grocery store to get groceries for her mom. And this is where Pennywise does what Pennywise does. This whole scene is one of the creepiest scenes I've ever seen, because of the way it's set up. As you just see people peering around corners staring at her. That man who just did the Michael Jackson lean from one side and leaned back out it was amazing the way they set this up. As we see the owls start to cut themselves off as she gets to pickles. But then in the pickles is her father's severed head. And all of these pickles start falling as multiple body parts of his are now in the pickle jars, as it freaks Lily completely out in a grocery store, which leads Lily's mother to doing the one thing Lily was terrified of having happen again, and that is her going to Jennifer Hill. But so first, I'm going to throw it to you, Amaya. What did you just think about the way this scene was executed here with Lily in the grocery store?
I mean, I knew it was coming, right? I mean, you're going to the grocery store by yourself. Lots of people around, right? But lots of people around, for me, is a surefire way for Pennywise to get to you, to make you look crazy. And they focused so much on her not wanting to go back to Juniper Hill, that I somehow figured it was a little bit of a twist. And seeing this scene happen, where eventually the owl starts to move, and now she's closed in, she's boxed in, and he says her name on the loudspeaker. You know what I mean? All these things, little triggers here and there, that get her, like, her heightened sense of fear is now taken over. But I was sad for her, because I was like, this one incident and her mom is so ready to ship her back off. And and my question in the back of my head is, now that she has been shipped back to Juniper Hill, how does that impact the sheriff's storyline about Hank, being a possibility? Because now she's not a solid source. So yeah, very interested how they did this, for sure. This scene was it was done well in terms of who Lily is. I think it played into her character really well.
And Mike, what did you think about the whole father out of a jar thing? As we again hear the morphing of the voice from whatever the father's voice was until more of a Pennywise type of voice as all this is happening.
Well, even in the pickle jar, you saw its face was a little bit white, which was similar to when he disguised himself to get the girl in chapter 2. You know, and you saw like, you know, his face was all painted and everything, and you know, he was kind of like in his human form, whatever. But yeah, no, I thought that was good. Again, now, as much as this episode was scary, the placenta sac, you know, seeing the black trauma, the racism, and all that stuff like that. Much of that was very difficult, you know, to go through it. And there were moments in the episode like, man, I can't watch this. And then when this entire scene, the grocery store, I don't know why, but I was smiling. I was like, oh, that's cool. That's, you know, like, I don't know. Listen, it just want. I'm not listen. I'm just saying when the set came in and you saw like you saw perspective of her going down the aisle and in the background just changing, and then you see one person